All right, I think we got the recorder button where the mics are hot. We got the levels good. And let's welcome everybody out to episode 45 of Utah in the Weeds. My name is Chris Holifield.
And I'm Tim Pickett, medical cannabis specialist with utahmarijuana.org. And this week we have an interview we recorded with Bob Waters, a friend of mine that I've known for a year, but a deep knowledge of the cannabis space and some good opinions about, what is wrong with the law and what needs to change. Yeah, Chris?
Oh, he was very opinionated, and I couldn't believe how vocal he was. I don't want to give too many spoilers here, but he was basically like, hey, I want to grow, and I don't care what you think about it.
Yeah. And you know what, what else is really interesting about him is the way he got into cannabis, his knowledge of what works for him as a patient. So he has both this activist side and this patient side, it's an interesting conversation. I like Bob a lot, and he's helped me expose our business, and he talks to a lot of patients on Instagram. But what is he? He's Bob Waters World 420.
Yeah, on Instagram. So go give that a follow. And also I want to mention that we talk about a few famous people that he got to partake of cannabis with. I don't want to give any spoilers, so make sure you listen in for that, right? You gotta...
right up until the end, Chris, because he's got that surprise at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Also, before we get into the interview, we have a Discover Marijuana YouTube channel, and we're going to start posting. We have educational videos there that I do with Blake Smith from Zion Medicinal. And, Chris and I are working on doing video for the podcast and going to put some stuff on there, hopefully shortly. So I want to give a plug out for that before we get into this interview.
Absolutely. And make sure utahmarijuana.org/podcast is where you can listen to all the podcasts on the website, as well as just subscribe in any podcast player that you listen to podcasts in. Also, go on utahmarijuana.org. I don't know if you mentioned this, Tim. You got tons of great articles on there as well for people that want to get educated, learning about the laws here in Utah, as well as even, how to get your card, what to do once you get your card, so on and so forth. So,
yeah.
Let's get into that interview, though, with Bob Waters. I don't want to hold people up here too much. Anything else you want to mention about this?
No.
Or I'm excited to play it.
Yeah, this is a great one.
All right, guys, here we go.
I told my family that I want to go to California. I wanted to get into the cannabis industry, and I wanted to hang out and smoke weed. And wouldn't that be cool if I could hang out with like Dr. Dre?
Now, how long ago was this?
It was 2018.
Okay, so just a couple of years ago.
Early 2018, yeah. At that time, I was working up at the Standard Examiner at the newspaper. So I'm working in the newspaper, and I was a little ticked off. About how the cannabis industry was going. The VA was telling me cannabis is the way to go for my conditions. Cannabis just starts coming at me. You know what I mean? And I'm talking to my family, and I'm seeing 420 on the clocks like the crazy weirdo in the movies, And I'm telling my mom, I'm like, hey. So fast forward through all that, I try to manifest this job. And I get a call from the publisher, not Ogden Publishing, rather. It was in Ventura. He gives me a call, and he was like, hey, you want to come down and be the associate publisher of Culture Magazine? I say, okay, well, yes. So I go home, and I tell my family I'm going to go down here and be the associate publisher of Culture Magazine. The instance with Tommy was a meet and greet that we had set up. Okay. It was at a dispensary down in SoCal. It was South Coast Safe Access, one of my favorite dispensaries down there. They love the veterans, great discounts, great variety. We set up with Tommy, so his publicists come in, and we set him up there. And the pictures I got on Instagram show me with him, and he's hanging out with my wife, and we're talking, and he's pretty laid back, right? He's incredibly high, and he's been high for a while, so
his whole life,
yeah, like
right?
Pretty much for a while.
So if you can understand, I don't think he has a tolerance either, but he's moving forward, and so I'm trying to talk to him, and I'm saying, hey, bro, can I get your autograph? And he's like, sure, okay. So I grab a joint, one of his pre-rolls. I'm gonna have him sign the joint. So in the pictures, he's arguing with me. He says, "No, man." What did he say? He said, "No, man, we smoke them. We don't sign them." And I'm like, "No, bro, you sign this one. This is for my kids. This isn't for us. We could smoke another one. I'll go buy another pre-roll, bro." And so he signs it. Yeah. So now I have this little pre-roll side by Tommy Chong, which I love, right?
Nice.
Cool.
I've been tempted to smoke it a couple times up here in Utah since I got back, but so that's
during those hard moments. You're just now. You mentioned Ventura, man. That's my hometown. Man.
Oh,
that's
really?
Did you live in Ventura, or this just happened that this thing was in Ventura that you had to go to?
Right. So they do like the city weeklies, the publishing company out of there, and I was actually living down in Irvine at the time, working the publication culture was located out of Corona.
Okay. Yeah, you just mentioned Ventura. My ears perked up. I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
That's cool.
Ventura, beautiful. Love the coast. We love going down through Malibu and then looping around the Horn there and dropping in, just going through the base and all that in Ventura. Love it.
Now, I imagine your history of cannabis goes back further than 2018, right?
Yeah. Probably when I was about 11 years old. That's when I was.
So like maybe 5 or 6 years ago then.
Yeah, right. Quite a while ago. No, yeah. I was a kid. The first time I was introduced to cannabis, we scored a nickel bag from a guy that was local in the area, probably about 11 or 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you grow up around it after that? Did you notice it was everywhere in the community you were in, or was it just like kind of everywhere else? Where were you?
Well, my family had the album Up in Smoke, right? So it was like played on the stereo. You grew up around it. Your roaches are in the ashtray.
Got it.
So it was really more like this was normal in my family anyways. Cannabis was normal in my family to some extent. And if not directly, like in the household, in the community, you meet those they meet, you get to see things like that.
Because I remember when we were talking one time, and you and I have known each other just barely over a year now.
Right.
But we were talking about RSO, right? Because I have a patient that needed some RSO, and we were talking about it. And you had said, like when you were growing up, the adults around you, when you were introduced to RSO, they were like, "Yeah, don't mess with that shit. That's medicine."
That's correct. Well, because it's just so strong, and it's the potency and the concentration too, that anything, when I was growing up, anything outside of the whole plant, any concentrate was kind of frowned upon. It was something you're taking it to a different level. You didn't want to be the dude at 2 a.m, sitting in your underwear in the bathtub, with 2 hot butter knives and a toilet paper roll in your mouth, burning honey oil. You didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah, right? That's intense. That's intense imagery right there.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So, concentrates are frowned upon. And RSO is like the granddaddy, the grand poobah of concentrates.
Sure. It has a place, but really only, in my opinion, it kind of only should have a place in the medicinal type regimen.
I would agree with you.
Right. It's just, I just don't see that I'm of the opinion that any substance that's that strong, that concentrated, is probably not good for human consumption in general, unless there's a specific reason RSO would fit that.
I would agree. I think once it's manipulated outside of the whole plant, then we're taking it to a different place.
Sure.
And then where are we going? Obviously, I think like Bob's condition, let's say, versus Mary's condition, and what she might need and he might need, and the variables thereof, the whole plant can provide perhaps what that individual needs. Because we have the system to embrace the cannabinoids. So if it's there and she's ill and the plant can fix that at a concentrated level, I think that's awesome. And that's a one-off case, I think, should be partnered with, obviously, their medical provider.
Right.
And it's something they work together on. And so RSO can do that. RSO can put you high as a kite for 1.5 years and cure cancer. It can do that, but somebody that's dealing with PTSD is not dying from cancer.
Right.
It's not that it's not yes. anything other than non-comparable. scientifically.
Right. And you talk about RSO and curing cancer, and yeah, there are cases. We had talked about this with Blake Smith at Zion Pharmaceuticals, that it's like about 1 in 1,000 cases where RSO will shrink a tumor. At least what we know of.
RSO, Rick Simpson oil. Yeah. For people that aren't familiar.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a really, really concentrated cannabinoid product. It's not available in Utah. So what do you use cannabis for now, medicinally?
Well, medicinally, I'll microdose through the day to deal with the pain. Like, we got a storm coming because I couldn't get out of bed this morning without smoking. And normally that's not the case. So I know a storm's coming. But I'll microdose through the day because I have spinal fusions and I have a lot of heavy metal in my body. So the chronic pain that goes with that, the sativa hybrid, allows me to function throughout the day to a pretty articulate level. I'm able to go to school and function and work and all that good stuff. At night, I'll use a heavier indica. I suffer from PTSD. And when I say PTSD, I really just mean like I suffer from the nightmares of war that haunt me. And in order to put them to bed, I smoke indica so I can sleep. I don't want to dream. And I prefer, that way, way, way over what I had chosen previously, which was alcohol. And,
now, are you drinking any alcohol?
No.
Now? Completely got off alcohol, all cannabis.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you kind of have a trifecta there with the chronic pain, the PTSD, and the addiction.
Oh, yeah, and I'm a gastric
right?
bypass.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like, here, have a beer. We all have a beer. You have 1, I have 3. You have 2, I have 6. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
For listeners with gastric bypass, and I used to work in bariatric surgery for 6 years, and the effect of alcohol is absolutely
devastating.
Just multiple times.
Does it get it drunk faster? Is that what it is?
Absolutely, yeah. You can't tolerate much alcohol at all. A lot of bariatric surgeons recommend people don't drink ever.
Yeah, you should never touch it.
So what would happen if you had a beer right now? You would just get so drunk, huh?
It'd be 3 beers.
3 beers, yeah.
3 beers.
Hey, cheap date.
Yeah. It's awesome until you're like the dude in the back. You're in the closet, right? You're in the closet with your box wine because you can't drink carbonated anymore and you can't get it in your system fast enough.
Yeah.
You're drinking it as fast as you can, but you're puking it at the same time because you're just full.
And this was you.
It was like Caligula, only they weren't tying off the end. You know what I mean? It was just like coming out my mouth. That was me.
So what, are your family and friends pretty supportive of you using medical cannabis then? I mean, have they noticed a change within yourself since you've used medical cannabis?
Well, it's hard to say, because I did 20 years in the military.
Okay.
And that was on the straight and narrow, right? I didn't mess with cannabis for 20 years. So the Navy told me not to. I followed orders.
Nobody was using cannabis in there, huh?
It wasn't worth it. I was told not to. It was pretty simple. It was just, I was told not to, the Navy took care of my family and I took care of the country and I just do what I was told. It was there if you wanted to. You could just write a letter home and get whatever you want on the ship or, it was there if you wanted it.
But you weren't messing around with it.
I wasn't messing around.
It just not a part of your life, right? Like it is now when you got out.
Right. And also my conditions weren't as such, that necessarily are the true driving factors for why I participate with it, because after I got out and retired, by that time, I had been through the surgery. I'd been into the alcoholism. I had had multiple spine surgeries. I was in a wheelchair. I was taking every opioid you can think of. And I was non-productive. Right? So the VA comes back and the dude just like folds the folder and says like, have you considered cannabis? And I'm like, I've considered cannabis, of course, but that's like, I don't want to be a stoner again, dick. You know what I mean? I was a little pissed off that this is what they decided, that I should just go get high. Oh, but by the way, you live in Utah, so you're screwed.
Yeah. Okay, so now you get into, is that kind of when you decided to get into the activism part of it, or did that take a while?
Well, I was in California first introduced, so it was a no-brainer. I went down to Dr. 420. I paid, I was still technically, it's a back and forth deal between Utah and California for a while. But the deal was, while I was in California is when I went to the a dispensary for the first time. California, I picked up my first clone. Right? That was the first experience since I'd retired from the Navy and been done. And we moved back to Utah, which has been my home. But doing that, I subjected myself, of course, to the laws of Utah. And so I abstained from cannabis again. And I wasn't on the medications that they would rather me be on because I was resistant to those. So it was a volatile time for me.
Mm-hmm.
And very painful time as well. But I got the job. I was working at the newspaper. And that's when...
In California.
No.
In Utah.
That was
in
the
Utah.
Standard Examiner.
That's right. And then the VA, I'm back in with the VA, and they're telling me the same thing Cali VA is telling me. Because I'm telling them, I'm like, yo, bro, I was down in Cali and everything's working right. And he's like, well, this is the way to do it if you want to do it, but you can't do it here.
Right. Yeah, we get a lot of referrals from the VA, frankly. They have a good system up there, and they take care of people, and they know cannabis works, and they just can't, they can't use it at all. Thank God there's a law that doesn't take away your veterans' benefits.
That's right.
If you're using within the state law, right?
Right.
Right.
And then there's a law that was just put on the floor recently by a representative of the House from Florida. I posted his name. I can't pronounce it, but he's putting in a bill to protect those rights again for anyone that's prescribed. And so, abiding by the law, he's not asking for the federal government to do anything other than allow the states to operate their program without fear of federal repercussion.
Yep.
For VA.
For the VA.
For the VA.
Right? Because there's those in fear that want to step forward, but they don't want to lose their VA rights and benefits.
Well, there's still a ton of VA. There's a ton of vets who they'll even come in here with their spouse and they don't touch anything with THC because they don't know. And even when you explain it, they're like, yeah, no, I'm not going to risk it.
Yeah, my buddies will all even advise me. So go back to your question about the community, totally embrace and whatever. No, not necessarily, right? Because I come from 3 different worlds, really, now. But those in the straight and narrow for the that don't have that as an option for them as a medicine, the rules are set up to restrict that, and they're used to that. And so they just need to be told it's okay. Not be told, wink, wink, it's okay.
As long as they have their medical card in Utah, it's okay, though.
Correct, yeah. As long as...
I just want people to know that listening, right?
And there's a federal law that protects the veteran benefits from being taken away if you're abiding by the state rules, which means if you are smoking weed outside of the law, if you don't have a card, then you don't have that protection as a veteran.
Yeah.
And so that's the caveat, right? We'll protect you, but therefore, if you're now outside of the law, then you might not be protected.
So it's a good idea to get your card.
So what do you do when the law is broken, though?
Yeah, so talk to us about your opinion about that, because you wrote a letter to the governor.
I have a very strong opinion about that.
Yeah, and I don't, we agree on some of these things.
And
even though I'm in business, I have this clinic and we do, and it's expensive for patients. And you and I have talked a lot about how to develop a program for low income and this cooperative. Okay.
Revenue is fuel.
Yes.
We start there. Revenue is fuel. The industry needs revenue in order to fuel what it needs to do to progress itself. That's the market. And that's ever present. Without revenue. And normally it comes from sweat equity. It comes from private investors. It comes from people willing to put in their own money, people willing to run credit cards, all that terrible stuff. That's normal in any new market. New industry, new market. This is, for Utah, this is a new industry. It's a new market. And so it's okay. Except that they're using it improperly, or naming it properly, or theming it properly, or using the catalyst to the industry is based on the needs of patients. but the needs of patients aren't being met because they're governed by a law that is broken. Now, that's my opinion. It's not a fact.
So explain this a little bit more. So you say you think the Utah medical laws are broken?
I do.
And explain a little bit more. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
So currently, my doctor says I need Blue Dream.
Okay.
It's my medicine. He also says that I need a Mixapol. I need a stomach medicine.
Okay.
I go to Walgreens. I have no doubt that they will have my meds, or they will have them within a day or so. I cannot get Blue Dream.
Cannabis.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm stuck.
So would in most states, is that possible? Like, it's like, let's say you had a card in even a brand new state that just opened up. Let's say, what's one of the newest states that just opened up? Say Virginia, right? Virginia's new, right?
Like Oklahoma's going crazy.
Would you be able to go there and get Blue Dream can you?
Well, not anymore. The law has changed to
But I'm just curious, this isn't just a Utah problem though, right? Like, this is a common thing in most states that open up.
I can only speak from my own experiences on that. I use Blue Dream to set the hard example. Yeah. What's hidden behind that is the fact that the monopoly, the Utah governance monopoly over the restriction over the natural development of the cannabis market. Mm-hmm. It's non-competitive. It doesn't allow for growers to come in, new growers to come in. They're going to offer different varieties. They're going to offer lower rates. They're going to offer discounts. They're going to attract more patients. Now, this is all great for a retail market, but it's a medical market. And so it has a cap. If we had the data, and I know the boys in Provo have it, but if we had the data that could show us there are X amount of patients within the state of Utah that suffer from each of these different qualifying conditions, and they earn X amount of dollars per year. X amount of dollars per year, and then just do the math. It stops there.
Yeah, you're saying that basically if you were to take the actual medical data and say, here's how many people in Utah suffer from chronic pain.
Right.
Because we know we have all this electronic health data.
Yep.
Take all that information, then we can get an average income for all those people. Then we essentially know the potential market for cannabis for pain, for that condition.
Unless I was trying to disprove that there's a need for it, then I can use the data to skew it to say that this is a limited actual demand.
Interesting.
Bob's registered. He's a member of the state. He uses an ounce a week. But it's weird that he doesn't buy an ounce a week. That's weird.
Yeah. See, that now you're talking about, I think it's probably a little confusing to listen to all this.
I know,
because we're here.
Because I go all over the place.
Because we're here in person, so it makes a little bit more sense.
And I'm eager to talk about some things, so I'll jump on one, and then I get a little confused.
Dude, that's the joy of a podcast,
that's
man.
Right.
It's all over the place.
Right.
And I just want to, the thing is we get so many different types of people that listen to this podcast, Bob. I mean, you're one of the people. I mean, Tim. I mean,
right.
All of us.
Yeah, all of us.
And we got people that are listening that are new to cannabis. We got old timers. We got old. And so a lot of people, like, that's even why I wanted to clarify RSO. And I want to clarify these things because a lot of people, they don't realize that, like, hey, there are some people like yourself. You said, hey, an ounce a week. I mean, some people are like, holy shnikes, like, that's a lot of weed. Right.
Yeah.
But to some people, that's not. And the thing is people up on Capitol Hill, they might not realize, hey, a lot of people might need an ounce a week. And if you were to go to the Utah dispensaries, you're going to be dropping $400 plus on an ounce.
Oh, right. We talked before we started recording. You're a $24,000 a year habit, right? Yeah. Or not a habit, but a medical need, right? Like, but it's funny how we say these things.
The state makes me feel like it's a habit,
right?
But
that's right.
But my question is, I've heard prices are pretty similar though to other states, and that's where I'm like, I get it that the price is expensive, but like when I hear that, like, say Chicago or Pennsylvania is even more for their medical, they're looking at like closer to 80, 85 for an eighth.
Right.
Right. And then there's this argument that we've heard from Bijan, Beehive, that is, and we've heard it from Jeremy Sumerix at Deseret too. If you switch this market to retail and you start charging 20% tax on it, the $60 eighth here goes up to $80.
Right.
And so there's some, we're not getting the whole picture. But back to your Blue Dream point, growing
Right.
keeps coming back as this thing that is missing from and really it's people like yourself, maybe, who are in this, what I would consider legacy users or legacy growers, people who have experience with the product. They know what they want. They could probably grow a plant or two, during the year.
Yeah.
And whether or not that's going to be your whole, it might not be your whole medical intake, but it would supplement. Think about if you could grow 2 plants a year and get, 4 or 5 ounces. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Well, it's the offset to that. You have the ability to supply almost your entire demand if the law is written correctly and allows you to have a continual growth cycle. As long as you have adults, adolescents, and babies continuously, then you're harvesting continuously.
Right. From a plant perspective, not a human perspective.
From a plant.
Yes. You're right. As long as you have the ability to cycle through the plants and you knew what you were doing, so you could pull the clones off and things like that. Do you think that there's a time now? So I like the market now. I think there are some problems with it, of course, like everybody, but I'm in it enough to know, or my opinion is we should all just be patient with the way things are and let things settle a little bit more. But that being said, we run into patients who cannot afford, they can't afford the clinic fees. They don't want to go to they want to, or they don't want to go to their primary care provider. 1, their primary care provider might not offer the service. 2, they don't know anything about cannabis and how to help somebody.
Right.
And so do you think that it's reasonable not to allow growing for now?
The law is so anti-Utah, it sickens me.
The law in Utah. So let's talk about this then.
Yeah, I mean, let's think about it. We as Utahns are a state of self-providers. We are taught daily that we should be able to take care of our own. If there's a way for us to have a garden, there's a way for us to have a food stockpile. There's a way for us to have a little bit extra so that we can give a little bit extra. If there's a way to do that, that's the Utah way.
The industrious state.
Right.
Yeah. This provide for your neighbor, the community garden. I remember when I first got married, we had a ward garden.
Yeah.
And you know what though? They had to deliver the tomatoes to people before they went bad because there wasn't enough people to go get their own damn tomatoes. It was terrible.
It was excess.
Right. But this Utah way, you are absolutely.
And the Utah law is written that it restricts that. The Utah law is written that says you cannot do that. You cannot do that. You will do it our way, this way, inefficiently. You will comply. It's not a Utah thing.
But in when you say not comply, that means growing, right?
Correct.
Growing.
Yeah.
As far. Is that really the only part you have an issue? I mean, there are probably other things that you have issues with.
Well, there's a lot of legalities. They changed. So the first thing they changed recently in January when they restricted us from going to Colorado or outside the state, right? Previously to that, the law was written that forced us to violate federal state trafficking laws if we wanted to get the volume that we needed at the price we could afford in the strains that we needed. You'd have to cross the state lines, then risk, federal prosecution. In January, that, what would we call that, Tim? That luxury went away.
Right. Well, the luxury to break federal law, right?
Went away.
And you have this, man, this is so complicated because there's all kinds of things that go along with this, including, they postponed reciprocity. So people from out of state can't come use cannabis yet until they develop that rule. If Rich Oborn's listening, Rich, I get it. You're busy. That law took a little bit of time. We've waited 20 years. We can wait a few more months. But the issue with the buying cannabis in outside markets and then bringing it back or even having it here with COVID, 2 things I'd say to that.
Correct.
With COVID, the amount of growing that these growers have done is much less than they could have done before. There's less dispensaries or pharmacies open than would have been open had COVID not been the case. We would have probably had St. George open by now because the market would have been more developed a little bit. So there's less product in the state than there would have been if there hadn't been a pandemic, which makes your point more valid, in my opinion, right? Being able to bring it in would be a better thing, a benefit.
But what triggered me having to break those laws? What triggered me to have to go to Colorado? What triggered me to have to go to Nevada? Ding dong, I'm trying to comply. You have flower? We have indica.
Yeah, for 5 hours.
And I need sativa during the day. I need it every day.
Now, should I just say, look, Bob, you've been waiting years. I mean, you're just going to have to wait a little bit longer.
What do you mean waiting years? I wasn't waiting. I was waiting for Utah to catch up with me.
See?
Now I'm compliant.
That's right. You want to be
compliant.
Right?
So I say, I subject to your law. I'm compliant. I go to your store. Ding dong. You don't have anything for me. Sorry. Why don't you have an opioid?
So the other point.
What do I do? What do I do?
True. And the other thing I was going to say about the bringing it in from outside is that when you do that, they have written the statute to really protective of the Utah industry, right? Even if federal law changes,
right?
Even if federal law changes, our statute here says you cannot have cannabis purchased outside of Utah. So it doesn't matter really if federal law changes. It's more restrictive here, and that would likely hold. It'd be a good question for JD.
Isn't that the same in every state though? Like technically,
I would
you shouldn't
imagine,
be crossing
right?
state line with
No,
any.
but if they decriminalize it and they allow transfer of this product between states, that won't matter in Utah because the law is written
I didn't realize
that you have to purchase it here. And that was a smart lobbying in my
So
my
they
opinion.
knew what they were doing there.
I mean, if you were somebody who was investing millions of dollars, you would have wanted a protection like that in case the feds decriminalize it. So I can see both sides, right?
Well, if I had a couple fiduciaries with me, I tell you, we could figure out, based on patients, what the market cap would be, based on Social Security and disability.
Weren't we talking to somebody we were talking to somebody, I don't know if this podcast has been aired yet, about how originally they were only planning like 6,000 patients.
Now
we have like
Katie Barber.
Yeah, with 20,000 patients.
Yeah, 6,000. In fact, they were talking to, we had talked to Zion about this too, that they had really, there was some projections of 16,000, but when the growers come and talk to us on this podcast, they were told 7,000 patients the first year. Mm-hmm. That's how much product you have to grow for.
And that's what they're growing for.
And really, they're probably, maybe 6,000 or 7,000 card holders could, there's enough product out there for them. I don't know.
That is a little skewed because there's a secondary market for that product. So there's a lot of repeat patient user buyers that aren't the users themselves.
I suspect that secondary market is bigger than people are willing to talk about. So the state max you can buy in Utah is 4 ounces of flower a month. That's only if you're a provider like me. If I say, Bob, you're my patient, and you can access the state maximum, so 4 ounces. Right. I don't do that very often, but because people don't use that much very often, the average user is not using 4 ounces a month.
I think a lot more would like to. It's just expensive.
Maybe. I think, there's all kinds of reasons, but people are increasing their
I wish I used
so they can
less.
give it away.
I wish I used less.
Yeah, okay, so you bring up a really good point. Again, the people who are actually using that much want to use less. The people who are using an ounce a month, they're buying 3. I mean, they're probably not making a profit. And if they are making a profit, boy, it's not very much. But they're giving it or selling it away to their friends and family.
Well, the secondary market here in Utah is screwed up right now because CBD flower's been introduced into it.
Oh, are they selling it like in the black market? They're selling CBD flower as regular flower and people getting ripped off, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so what happened is now you go outside the state on the border stores, you can't get anything but nugs the size of eraser heads. tight like rocks. So the growers shrunk. They shrunk the buds into tight little rocks that you can't make a hemp flower like that. Hemp flower's too big fat indica buds, right? Those big monster ones they show you.
Yeah, the
on
Matterhorns. I mean, they're huge.
Yeah, they're big things right there. So we know those are no good now. So they put a big dent in indica, but sativa was safe. So even the indica now you're getting is small. And they're forcing smaller buds because smaller buds mean safer transactions.
Interesting. I don't follow the secondary market much.
Well, I don't. It's hard to spend $24,000 in the store on weed. My wife would frown upon that.
Yeah. When you've become a student again as well, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Are you taking some classes?
I am. I'm a registered student in the Utah State University's horticulture program.
There you go. You're going to learn how to do some growing.
I am. I'd love to own a nursery someday.
Was it really the pandemic that kind of did it force you back into this, or did it?
It did. My last opportunity got heavily affected by COVID, and I'm not a victim kind of guy, you know. So even though it sucks and it's whatever, it's how do we be productive? Interactions are limited right now and restricted. I felt comfortable using it as an opportunity to take a step back and go to school, study up, and learn a new trade.
Cool. Are you able to use veteran benefits to help?
I am. It's voc rehab. Cool. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the VA.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I love the state of Utah.
Yeah.
So I risk my livelihood. I'll risk anything to be here.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like, why not move to Colorado or Oregon or something? It seems like it would be a lot easier.
We have people like this all the time, right, Chris?
No, and I hate saying that. Like, get out of Utah, but it's like
I know, but there's.
Well, here's the problem. Yeah. Utah's a great place.
It is, and that's what I was excited about.
And I think the question comes. I think the question Chris is asking the question. I would ask the question in this way, like, you know, why? What about Utah makes you stay here? Because everybody stays. There's just so many people who want to be here.
Yeah.
You know, for whatever reason, agree or disagree with parts of this cannabis law, or frankly, other things. I mean, the cannabis is not the only thing. I
sent a very candid letter to the governor, Governor Hebert. I sent a very candid letter to the governor, outlining a point paper of things that bothered me. And I brought up a lot of the things we've talked about today. And I would say that his response was very eloquent.
Oh, so he responded?
Not him, his office.
Okay.
Let me say that it's his office, but from his from this constituent's office, the response back I got officially was that they recognize that the problem exists with the laws, the program, and that we're working on it. And basically, it was saying, be patient.
Mm-hmm.
What would help more growers? Do you think that would help the law? Is that or home grow?
Well, I think, unfortunately, you either have to decide that you want a retail market or not. If you got BOGOs, if you got specials, if you got red lights, if you've got vans out front with the flappy little things, if you've got that's a retail market in essence.
Yeah.
That's not a medical market. And a true medical market can't support itself.
And those are the examples I guess I needed to hear, because I didn't realize that, you know, and that makes sense to me because I've heard this time and time again. I'm like, well, what is it about it that people aren't considering a medical? And I see that. I see that.
And it's non-supportive. See, the state of California tried that with the Compassionate Care Act.
Mm-hmm.
They tried that. They used that as a springboard.
Yeah.
They had patients. That's the standard rule. Okay, we're on a cannabis program. What do we do? Okay, let's show 6 trembling kids and babies. The voters will say yes.
Yep.
And then that happens. Well, in California, they use AIDS and AIDS patients, HIV, cancer, babies. Congratulations. You got a Compassionate Care Program, Compassionate Care Act. That rolls out. That transferred into a retail market, and the patients were left behind. Now, the medical program in the state of California doesn't exist.
There's none.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
The retail market is so beat down by the black market then the prices are very affordable. And it's reasonable. You can go in on any given day and find somewhere where you can get an $8, $10 gram.
That'd be nice.
Right. Wow. So here,
there's top shelf, bottom shelf, mid shelf, but that's just a walk-in price. $10, $12, no problem.
And here we've essentially, what you're saying is mixed the retail market and the medical market because we have the specials.
Yes.
And
well, let's just say that on the standard price on a gram is about $15.71. That's about the standard price. The problem is with cannabis, anyone that's been using it for a while, you get deals on volume. If I buy a pound, I'm not going to pay the same per gram price. If I buy an ounce, if I buy a quarter ounce, if I buy an eighth, if I buy a gram, kind of like, I don't know, but that's just the way the industry's been ran.
Yeah.
And that's the way so the people we bring in, we import people from other markets, we bring in habits, we bring in styles, we bring in people that are operating multi-state operations. Multi-state operation trike. Do you think they're going to write a SOP on everything for Utah and then an SOP for every different state? So they got standards and things happen, right? Mm-hmm. But going back to that, where were we at? The pricing.
Yeah.
Pricing variances, they're just high. Now, if I'm a true patient, well, let's just say you're a standard patient in the state of Utah that's on disability. What are they making a month?
Well, it's like $800.
Let's go big. Let's say $1,200.
Yeah.
$1,200 a month.
That barely pays their rent.
Barely pays their rent. They're already out.
Yeah, that's right. They're already out. And this is the conversation that you and I have had many times, is how can we get the cannabis into their hands to reduce the prescription medications that they have to take.
Correct.
Right? This is not about getting cannabis into their hands legally so they can use it on top of their medications. This is changing their life for the better.
This is people breaking the law.
That don't want it. They don't want to break the law. They just want their medicine.
They want to be compliant.
Yeah.
They can't afford it.
So what
because Utah's making enough money. What are they making? $3 on a transaction?
Yeah, $3 on a transaction. But most of the fees that the state makes are
on the back end,
all on the back end, not on the front end.
Right.
It's the licensing fees and the testing fees. The Department of Ag, those testing fees I think are high. I don't know what they are. They're getting their fees somewhere.
It costs about $5 to put a seed in the ground. Right? If you buy it in bulk, let's just say $5-10 to put a seed in the ground. If we were to try and do cost analysis on where is the restrictive on this whole pipeline, where would the restrictive chokehold be? It's going to be between the growers and the state. That's where the money's at. And okay, that's fine. But then they also limit the amount of growers. So they're limiting their revenue. It's just...
They'll figure it out.
It baffles my mind.
They'll figure it out, I think. I mean, I want to hope they do.
So you and I had talked about...
more square feet. The growers need more. The solution is more square footage.
Yeah, and isn't that on the hill right now, 100,000? There's
more
some
square footage.
More square footage is on the bill right now, and I think there's some pretty hard push to get them more canopy.
Well, if the deal is, if they don't let them export, and they gave them all the square footage they need, we'd have enough cannabis.
Oh yeah, they'll grow enough.
They'll grow.
Come on, right? Trike, Zion, Wholesome, the Dragonfly.
They'll grow.
They'll grow as much as we need.
As much as they can sell.
They'll grow as much as they can sell. That's true.
So are they willing to drop the price to sell more? Man, this sounds like a retail market.
Well, have you noticed prices are actually going up since they've opened? Because when Dragonfly started, they were selling an eighth for about 50, 55, and now it's tough to find anything for under 60.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's interesting.
And it's interesting that
I knew there was they had options before.
Yeah.
And then they came in one time and you could get, and I love them, sure. I hate on them a little bit only because they represent something that I have angst with. But them themselves, I love them. They're great people. They're trying their best with what they got.
They are. And, to Dragonfly's credit, I met with them, their owners last week, and they really are devoted to quality.
I believe that 100%.
Which is just I mean, that's a good thing. They really
like their
are
distillate
devoted to quality.
is top shelf.
It is. And
It's
they don't use anything to cut it down with. They're very, it's a big deal to them.
Yeah.
So how do we get these people, what's the idea of getting the lower income people into the system?
Yeah.
If we can't change the law, we've got to have some way for the dispensaries and these pharmacies and these growers to offer. I mean, what do they got to? They've got to offer something. I've got to offer something in the clinics. We all essentially have to team up to have essentially like a sliding scale program, like a membership program if you're on disability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I've tried that. I've tried something like that. I wired it up. I had a few people that were interested. Basically what it was is that if you were a member of our union.
Yeah. The union.
If you could afford like a monthly fee of say $50, or maybe we make it income based, right? Mm-hmm. If you were a member to that, what we did is we had a partner dispensary and a partner medical provider so that we could bypass some of these fees that are cost restrictive to access to care. Not a lot of interest.
I think that the two things I think about are there's a lot of people busy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The growers are busy expanding. The pharmacies are busy expanding, just trying to keep their head above water not above water as far as the financials, but above water as far as like the build out and I got to open and I got to see all these patients.
Yeah. It felt like I had a grower that was like 100% down, right? Or we'd have people that were into it and it's cool, but overall, and then when talking to the actual patients, I went out and talked to people that are breaking laws right now, that they go out and score their $20 in Liberty Park every day, right? Mm-hmm. I asked him, why do you do that? He was a guy who got $250.
Right.
And he goes, but why would I do that? I'm getting this for $20. How much are you getting what you're getting for? I don't have that money. I can't afford it. It isn't about want to be compliant. They're cost out. They're just cost out. So he's doing his transactions. I'm telling these people, say, come on, just sign up $50 a month. You're paying $20 a day. What a deal.
Right. What a deal. You can get an indica, you can get a sativa. Yeah. You don't get a ton of choice out on the black market. You're not going to get a ton of choice in the dispensary because they're going to give you the whatever they have
bottom
left,
shelf,
right? The bottom shelf, but that's what you're getting out on the street probably.
Yeah.
At least half the time.
Yeah. At least it's clean. At least it's clean and legal. Right?
Yep.
Clean and legal. If it was affordable, and I asked him, I said, if it was the same price, you can go to the store, talk to the nice person behind the counter every day and spend your $20.
Uh-huh.
Or you could go spend it in the park in this illegal transaction. Which would you rather do?
Sure.
They go to the park.
Why do you think the state of Utah is like afraid of home grow? Like, why do you think they don't want people growing here?
I mean, from a business standpoint, I know why the growers don't want people to home grow.
I think they do.
Yeah, but I mean, really, people aren't going to. I mean, that would be like the grocery store afraid that we have a garden. You know what I mean?
That's like, exactly what I was thinking right now. The farmer's market is booming.
Yeah.
And I can grow tomatoes in my garden for free, but I still go down to the farmer's market and buy expensive tomatoes, frankly.
Yeah.
That's a good.
I don't know.
You make a really great point, and I would love to play with it. Right? Like, I don't want to grow production.
No,
but I'm fascinated with growing a home garden, and I would be fascinated with growing a Blue Dream or growing a Pineapple Express, or growing something from a seed that I thought, man, you know what? I did this on my own. I understand the process better, and then I think I'd appreciate the medicine more.
Well, just some way to bring the price down, like you were saying, Bob. I mean, they could even sell us the plant. I better not give them any ideas, right? The state of Utah, any ideas. But it just seems like there would be some way that they could still get some money from us, you know?
Yeah, they could track it.
Yeah,
because they're already tracking it.
Only let the growers be the nursery.
Yeah, something. Right? I don't know.
You could go in. So there's a couple different ways. Probably the easiest way and they can subsidize it. So you're buying a clone from the grower that's tagged. You're just buying one of their plants and you take it home.
Right.
It's tagged. It's registered. So there is some restrictions on that, right? putting your name in there saying, hey, here's my address. I have a cannabis plant. I don't live within 100 feet from a school, or, whatever legislation.
I'm sure they come up with something.
Whatever is in there, you just go check the plant out. We can rent a car. We can rent the plant. It's the same deal. You just take it home. That's the easiest way.
Yeah.
Easiest way. But if you want to be like, no, I want to order my seeds from Amsterdam, and I want to be completely all natural, and I want to pick all the everything, fine. Then go apply for a tag and be willing to subject yourself to inspection.
Sure.
The inspector comes in. How many plants are you supposed to have in this residence? 1. Where is it? Right here. Oh, good. Hey, looks nice. Smells kind of stinky. Okay. Your house is kind of stinky. I mean, most people don't want their house to be kind of stinky. I don't know.
Yeah. You make it sound so easy, Bob.
I know, and we've kind of gone down the rabbit hole here, but I like this discussion.
Sure.
It seems so reasonable to come up with solutions to some of these things that the government imposes on us.
Yeah.
There's a question I want to ask you, and this could be a big topic, but I think you're the perfect person to ask this. PTSD, that's currently what you use cannabis for, correct?
Correct.
How do you feel about them taking that away from you as a qualifying condition?
Yeah, there's some discussion about removing it.
I mean, especially we've been talking about VA. I mean, I know that's a big thing used in the VA. So
my job was to end human life. That's counterintuitive to how I think we're wired as humans and causes some clinical issues. That's different from getting hit with a bag of flour and now being afraid to go down aisle 5. So I don't think lawmakers are well versed in what PTSD really is, and I don't think they're qualified to govern it. They should let the governing of medical conditions be left to the medical field, in my opinion.
Amen. Yeah.
There you go.
I was just curious because I know we've talked about that probably in the last
that's kind of dark,
episodes,
but that's how I feel about it, right?
Well,
but if I say I got PTSD, what do I got PTSD? I'm afraid of the batteries. I got hit in the head when I was a kid by 7 people that hit me with batteries. That's real condition, maybe, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I can't disqualify that per se. But I could say this: for me, I have reoccurring nightmares. So every night I have these repetitive dreams of doing things that are terrible, in my opinion, and they're there, and it's all night, and I don't sleep, and it's just repeat over and over and over again. So, like I said, cannabis was an alternative to my first choice, which was alcohol. If you drink enough, you can pass out and you won't dream.
Yeah, but one of the benefits of cannabis is it works on the memory centers of the brain, and it's ideal for disassociating memories when it's used appropriately.
Yeah, it's great.
It's actually, with PTSD, there's some interest in studying heavy cannabis use right after an event that is, people have a potential to develop a PTSD. And so I'd like to see a study that gives heavy cannabis doses, heavy THC doses right after the event, disassociate the memory from the event so that you don't form those connections.
Amazing.
Right?
It'd be
then
like
you don't have to deal.
Let's say there was a rape.
It's that type of premise.
Yeah.
So then you can dose them with heavy THC. You limit the connections that are formed in that immediate period after.
Wow.
And then you can essentially reduce the PTSD trigger later. It's a very interesting treatment theory for cannabis use. It's not currently.
That's why we have to get it
right?
into the scientists' hands.
Exactly.
More smart people, smarter than me. They need smarter than us. Look, we end up with we end up making it kind of cool. We need scientists to take this plant to a different place. That's what I think.
You were mentioning Blue Dream as a favorite strain. Is that your all-time favorite strain, or what's your all-time favorite strain?
I use it as a favorite.
Okay.
Through the years, though, I develop more. I look more for, and because it's like, what are you really getting, right? Mm. Hey, I'm selling you some Acapulco gold. Yeah, sure you are.
Yeah, sure.
I've seen that. No, you're not. Or whatever. But using the Blue Dream analogy or the specific profile, it comes down to that. What am I looking for in the terpenes? What qualities in the terpenes? What quality in the plant that's going to be bringing these certain effects? And each strain, as we know, each strain carries these different levels and concentrations of different chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes down to chemicals. And Blue Dream, it makes me feel good. It makes me comfortable.
Sure.
And I love it. But I can find some of those similar effects in a different strain, which is a personal favorite. Yeah. So that's how I feel about that.
Just curious.
That's
It's something
cool.
we
Yeah.
ask people.
It's a favorite question of ours.
Yeah.
What's your favorite strain? Well, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah. Anything? I mean, we could probably keep going. I don't know. What other topics should we cover with you, Bob? I don't know.
I smoked a joint with Eazy-E's kid.
Let's talk about this. Okay. Let's talk about this. I'm a fan of the Eazy-E guy. Yeah.
You remember, because it started with, I told you why I got involved in cannabis.
Yeah.
Oh,
I got
my
involved
God.
in cannabis because I wanted to go down. I wanted to have an opportunity to smoke a joint with
Tommy John.
well, not Tommy John. It was Dr. Dre.
Oh, Dr.
Oh,
Dre.
yeah, that's right. It was
Yeah,
Dr.
it did.
Dre.
I like gangster rap. I'm a gangster rap fan.
I love it.
So, anywho, where else, if you're a fan of gangster rap, where else or who else would you rather be smoking a blunt with
Dr. Dre.
Than Dr.
or
Dre.
Dr. Dre? Well,
Eazy-E.
Eazy-E's pretty good.
Rest in peace, right?
Yep.
Eazy-E's son.
So how did you
It's
get
kinda
connected?
cool.
How did you find out he was a
So
son?
funny. I
what-
could probably recite some of those songs
Yes.
from when I was a kid.
Yes,
Easy.
it's beautiful. Well, I had the luxury of being introduced to Little E and Little Eazy-E and E3 and Big A. I got to introduce them through a company called Nuggle. I had the opportunity to work with them for about 6 months. It's a tech company, and they're part of Rich and Ruthless Records, and they were doing work together at the time. Put together a magazine for them.
Very cool.
It was all great stuff. They're a great company, good people, and it was a wonderful experience. It really was cool.
That's cool.
That's the story of my life. I survived a volcanic eruption. I've been in a volcanic eruption.
Like a real one.
Like a real one.
volcano, not a volcano that you smoke out or vape out of.
No vaporizer. No, we could go for days, but that's funny.
Easy Chong.
Dude, that is so cool. I mean, I would ask you, I mean, do you want to get involved more in the industry at all? Or are you kind of happy the way it is, what you're doing right now, just as a patient, or what? Where do you see yourself going with all this?
Well, but first and foremost, obviously I want the home grow, some type of home grow opened up. And I'm not beyond it being very restrictive, because I think that there's value, there's a connection in value with growing your own food. Your own medicine is your own crop, there's a value to that. And I think that's really tied to a right that I should have. I think that's being a little too restrictive. It can be ruled. It can be governed. Other states are doing it. It's not that hard. They're not going to lose money either. Most people don't want a stinky plant growing in their house.
No.
And even in the backyard, they can reek. They're very aromatic, right? I enjoy it, but not everyone's situated. Or if I'm next to a church, you don't want somebody growing 30 plants in their backyard right next to a schoolyard.
Yeah.
You don't want that. So it needs to be controlled, because humans need to be controlled, unfortunately. That seems to be the case anyways. So just going back to that, that's something I'd like to see happen.
Yeah.
Home grow. That's important to me.
Any other
Cool.
questions for him, Tim, or should we wrap this episode up?
Not right now. We'll bring you back around
Yeah,
when the
man.
laws change, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, any final
And when the
words of-
union gets up and running.
I if anyone, we'll see. There's a Cannabis Patient Union. It's on Instagram. People can find it if they want to follow. And
Is it Utah Cannabis Patients Union?
Nope, just Cannabis Patient.
And this, on
Cannabis
Instagram, you
Patient
said?
Union.
Just follow me.
And
And
that's how people can get a hold of you too, if they wanted, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. People have to be willing to register. People have to be willing to partake. It's going to take some early adapters, I think, initially, and some people willing to risk taking some chances.
Mm-hmm.
I unfortunately think that the lack of interest is going to be from the legislative side,
Yeah,
because they'll shut us down. We're creating an insurance company.
essentially is what, it's what the union would do with this membership type program and everybody involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it just came down to lack of interest.
What's your handle on Instagram?
Bob's 420 World.
Bob's
Oh, that's
420
you.
World.
I know. I follow you.
Yes,
Bob's
that's
420.
me.
That's you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, it's good to meet you.
Hi, pleasure.
That's so cool. Yeah. So reach out to Bob. Get in touch with him.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Let him know you heard him on Utah in the Weeds. Let him know you heard this episode.
Absolutely will. And I'll put, and I've been a little lazy, to be truthful. We've been distracted by afraid of dying from COVID. I got to focus a little more on it.
Yeah.
And I'll put a push and let people know about the podcast here. I think this is great.
Yeah.
And then we'll see if we get some people interested, we can move forward. I've had some interest from the grower. We've had talk.
We're definitely interested, and we have locations, a lot of places, going to St. George, going to, we'll be in the areas where people need the medical side of it and the recommendations and talking to people like what they could try, all of that medical and education side, we are 100% on board for to help with that system. Because I agree that revenue is
let's
fuel.
get together because I also want to make sure that we're protecting you and what you've built.
Right.
Done some great
Like you said in the very, very beginning. I mean, revenue is fuel, and you have to have fuel or else we can't keep the lights on.
That's correct.
Right?
That's absolutely correct.
But there is a growing number of people in this state who need help.
Great.
Right?
Well, let's do it. Let's help them.
Let's do it, guys. Really quick, I know we mentioned at the beginning how people can get a hold of you, Tim, but let's run down that list really fast.
Just utahmarijuana.org/podcast. That's where the podcast lives. And if you need to get a hold of us, utahmarijuana.org. That's the best place to get a hold of me.
And reach out to either Tim or myself if you're interested in coming on the podcast. Patients, doctors, growers, whatever. If you're involved at all in the industry, even if you've never been on a podcast, right? Like most of the people that come through, I'm sure, Bob, this is your first time coming on a podcast. No, or you've been on a podcast?
No, this is my first time being on a podcast.
You were a pro, man.
Yeah, I was on Money TV once.
Okay.
I had a suit and tie. You never would have recognized me.
So reach out, leave a review, and then go listen to my other podcast, I Am Salt Lake, and then everybody will be happy. So.
All right, everybody.
I Am Salt Lake. I know that.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, you're welcome.
Stay safe out there, everybody.
Thank you.